So, constant state, the constant state in the original edition. In the original edition, it is chapter 4, section 7. And we're starting from the paragraph that says the term holy. So, let's see. All right, so remember I'm just going to do a little reminder of what we did last week because it follows in this week. And then it was saying in last week's section, it was talking about the ego. And it was saying, you've got to learn how much of your thinking is ego-directed. That's part of this curriculum. That's part of what we're learning. How to discern just how much we're thinking with our egos. Just how much our ego is thinking for us and we're just going along with it. We need to know just how much of our thinking is ego-directed. He says the reason, but he says, but we don't stop there. Don't stop there because you don't want to just go, wow, my thinking is very dominated by ego. I must be an ego. You don't want to stop there. And then he says, then it talks about the ego, and it says the ego is just nothing more than a part of your belief about yourself. Just a part of your belief about yourself. It's a little part of your belief, okay? So what's the rest of me? He says, the ego is just a little part of your belief about yourself, and says your other life has continued without interruption. And remember we talked a lot about, I have an other life. I have an other life I don't know about. Yeah, while you've been focusing on this tiny little part of your belief about yourself called the ego, your other life has continued without interruption and has been and always will be totally unaffected by your attempts to forget about it. So he's saying that we have a whole nother life that's been completely unaffected by our ego. So it's my life without my ego. Wow, who knew, right? And so then, and it was saying that this, and it continues on without interruption, and it is what? It is not even affected by any of your attempts to not know that it's there, okay? Then we talked about last week the bridge. What was we called it the escape capsule. How do you get from a life totally focused on this tiny little aspect of our belief about ourselves all to our other life, to experiencing our other life? The escape capsule, he said, was your debt to your brothers and sisters. I was like, well, that's interesting. You're saying the way to get from this life where it seems like the ego is real and my life is dominated by conflict and lack and loneliness and pain and illness, to my other life. How do you get there? The bridge is your debt to each other. Your debt, your gratitude to each other. I thought that was really interesting, is that's the bridge to your other life. So that's very interesting. And it was saying, so if that's the way to get to your other life, the life where it's been unaffected by your ego, he says, then every time you react egotistically to one another, you are throwing away the graciousness of your indebtedness and the holy perception your gracious indebtedness would produce. Okay, so every time I'm coming from the ego, I'm reacting from the ego to somebody, I am throwing away the indebtedness, the graciousness of my indebtedness. And then the holy perception that my gratitude produces. Okay. So when I'm expressing gratitude because I'm aware of my indebtedness to this person in my life, that produces holy perception. Isn't that interesting? What's holy perception? What's holy perception? It's a kind of perception that you have when you are expressing gratitude to each other. And he was saying that unless you're not expressing gratitude or perceiving gratitude to others, you are not perceiving correctly. If you are perceiving correctly, that's all that you could experience is gratitude. Because their ego and their call for love is a cause for gratitude because it's teaching you about your own ego, which you gotta see. You can't decide apart against your ego if you don't see your ego, right? If you don't know, if you don't see what you're projecting onto other people, you will not know the ways that you're self-deceiving yourself. So it's incredibly valuable to see other people's ego, and we should be grateful. He's saying we should be grateful for that. Why? Because it's showing us what we're trying to hide from ourselves. And unless I see what I'm trying to hide from myself, I won't know that I'm trying to hide from myself. I won't know what I'm hiding from myself, and I will remain self-deceived. I'll just remain deceived, which means deluded. I'll remain deluded. I won't know what's really going on. I won't really see what's really happening because I'm deceiving myself. I don't see. I'm not recognizing how much of my own thinking is ego-directed. So not only am I grateful for the love and the appreciation and the helpfulness that people are giving me, but I also am deeply indebted to them for what they are willing to show me about my own ego. That if I don't see, guess what? Then I don't get to choose again. I don't get to choose better. Wow. So truly, my only correct perception or reaction to anybody is gratitude. Wow, thank you, thank you. Thank you for being willing to be the projection screen for my ego. I appreciate that. Because if I wasn't seeing it, I don't get a chance to choose again. I don't get a chance to go, oh, okay, that's what I believe about myself. Gee, do I want to keep that? So when you are perceiving gratitude or with gratitude to other people, it produces holy perception. Wow, interesting. Very interesting. Gratitude produces holy perception. What does holy perception mean? It means correct perception. It means healing perception. It means accurate perception. And accurate perceptions are what miracles are. When you see things accurately, you see things the way they really are, according to reality, in reality, guess what? Boom! That's where miracles come in. You get the miracles you need on your job. You get the miracles you need in your body. You get the miracles you need in your relationship. You get miracles. And everybody around you does too. Interesting. All right.
Is this introducing to us the fact that, it says, know thyself. Mm-hmm. We tend to go within.
Yes.
But this is saying the only way to do that is through your brother.
That's exactly right. And it also goes on to say, if you want, the only way to know your Creator is through your brother. So he goes on from going, hey, listen, until you see each other correctly, you won't see correctly. Correct perception and your real life, your other life, comes through seeing others correctly. How do you know when you're seeing other people correctly? You have gratitude. If you don't have gratitude, you're just not seeing them correctly. All you're seeing is your projections that you do not want to claim because you don't want them healed. Okay? So it says, now it's going to go on to talk about the holy, in quotes, perception. It says the term, quote, holy can be used here because as you learn how much you are indebted to the whole family of God, which includes me, says our teacher in the voice of the course, you come as close to knowledge as perception ever can. That's why when you perceive with gratitude and you are grateful to others, that's why it produces a holy perception. Holy because it brings you so close to knowledge. Your gratitude brings you so close to knowledge that only a gap. It brings you as close to knowledge as perception ever can come to knowledge. Wow, interesting. So what in the progression from perception and interpretation to knowledge, what brings you from perception to knowledge? Gratitude. The holy perception that gratitude produces. And gratitude, your indebtedness to each other takes you so far through perception that it brings you almost to knowledge. Almost to knowledge. And the only thing left between perception and knowledge is just a little gap. Just a little space. And then that gap, that little space, is so small that knowledge, which is certainty about who and what you are, certainty, no more self-doubt, certainty can easily flow across that tiny little gap and obliterate that gap, that space, forever. Wow, how very interesting. So what glorifies and purifies perception, taking it to knowledge, is the recognition of your indebtedness, your great, your deep indebtedness to other people. Isn't that interesting? You know, we were taught the way you get to holiness and knowledge is through sacrifice, self-denial, long years of meditation and prayer, right? That's what we learned, how you become holy. How do you become holy? Well, you deny yourself, you become an ascetic, you sacrifice, you take long years of self-denial and long years of meditation aimed at detachment from the body, and you become a good person, and you do this, and you serve. He's saying, actually, what gets you to holiness is the recognition of your deep indebtedness to other people. Wow. That gets you there. It gets you almost all the way to knowledge, which means certainty of the truth. No more self-doubt. But it gets you so close that knowledge itself can flow across it and bridge and then into that gap. There's no more gap. And you become somebody who knows the truth and lives in the certainty of who they are, lives in the certainty of their innocence, their power, their lovableness. You live in that certainty. You're not just like, oh, am I okay? You don't live in self-doubt anymore. You live in certainty of who and what you are, your power and glory. Wow. And gratitude gets you there. Who knew? Wow.
You think that's because it goes back to they were always looking at the mirror? And what's the Course say? That the encounter that you have with your brother is yourself, and it is a holy encounter.
It's exactly right. It's exactly right. Apparently, the way back to God and the way back to the knowledge of who we are, the knowledge, the certainty of who we are, apparently the way back is through our brothers and our sisters. Damn it. I really was trying to get back to God and peace and my own glory by myself. Really. I figured, forget it. If it's up to me seeing them correctly, oh dear God, no, please just tell me the way back to you without them. Because you know how they are. So he's saying that the way you get back to union with your source and knowledge of yourself to the point where you're not plagued by self-doubt anymore is through others. It's through seeing others as they are, not as you wish them to be. And my ego was like, damn it. Because I was just hoping to get there without them. Because they are a pain in the butt. And it's hard to see them correctly. Especially the closer they are, the harder it is to see them with gratitude, right? Right. So basically, the way back is through the portal of your correct perception of each other. Wow. All right. So now, our teacher, the voice of the Course, the teacher of the Course in Miracles, the Course in Miracles guide, speaks to us directly, and it says this. Our teacher says, "You have very little trust in me as yet. But your trust in me," says our teacher, will increase as you turn more and more often to me instead of to your egos for guidance. Okay? So our teacher's like, you don't have very much trust in me right now? How do I know? How do I know you don't have very much trust in me as yet, says our teacher. Because when you are in trouble, I know you still are turning to your ego for guidance. But as you turn to your teacher more and more often for guidance, instead of your own ego, your trust in your teacher will increase. So, what's the goal here? Our trust in our teacher increasing more and more. Our trust in our teacher increasing more and more. So that now, when stuff comes up, we go, teacher, 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 what is the correct perception? What is the correct way of looking at this? Teacher, how do you see this person? Teacher, how do you see this situation that I am going through? What's your interpretation of this problem I'm having? Teacher, more and more often we'll be doing that first, more and more often. And as we do that, we will see how trustworthy our teacher really is. And he says, turning more and more often to our teacher for guidance, the results of that will convince you increasingly that your choice in turning to me, says our teacher, is the only sane choice you can make. Okay, in any situation where there is conflict, or there is fear, or there is lack, or there is pain, there is only one sane choice. There's only one sane choice. And it's not to try to figure out their motivations. That's for sure. That one sane choice, it's not to figure out how to fix them, or how to fix the problem, or how to analyze what's going on here. Why are they doing that? Why are they like that? Why am I like this? What is their problem? And how do I fix it? Oh, and how do I get them to change? You know, because really, if they would change, I'd be happy. Of course, that's the content of a grievance. If this were different, I'd be happy. If they were different, I'd be happy. That's what we have been doing when we have conflict. We don't go, teacher, hello, teacher. We go straight for, let's see, what needs to change here besides me? What besides my mind needs to change for me to be happy and peaceful in this situation? And because we're not turning first to our teacher, we don't have trust in our teacher because we don't know how powerful and loving and present our teacher really is because we don't turn to it first. But as we more and more often turn to our teacher first, our trust in our teacher will grow because the results of turning to our teacher will convince us that that's the only sane choice we can make in any given situation. Wow.
Does this relate back to what he was just telling us about our brother? And even when we go to our teacher, we're so unpracticed at it, we can't hear it very well at all.
That's right.
And so our brothers are provided as a way to get that lesson.
Yes.
So that we can become better listeners to our internal teacher.
That's exactly right. And our teacher is always going to tell us how to see correctly others and ourselves. But others in particular. Why? Why is it that the focus right now of the curriculum is how to see other people correctly through the eyes and the interpretation of our teacher? Why is that? Well, because all of our ego we have projected onto others. All of our ego we have projected onto others. So my ego has become unconscious in my own self. But I can see it in others. Like right now, I don't see my ego in myself as much as I see it in others. My ego to me is unconscious. I've shoved it away.
So we're like looking at the world through our ego glasses.
That's right. That's exactly right. So the ego has to, like, we can't have our ego corrected in ourselves because we've projected it onto others. So Holy Spirit has to start there and go, all right, I'm here to teach you the truth about yourself, and I'm also here to teach you the truth about the ego also. And so I'm going to focus on the way you see other people, how you're reacting to them, how you interpret them, because that's where you projected your ego. That's where we're going to learn about your ego. That's where you're going to see, oh my goodness, I have an ego. Look what it says. Look what it does. Look how much of my thinking is ego dominated. Wow. How do I know that? Because of how I see and experience other people. Interesting. So that's what our teacher is going to, it's like, our teacher is like, look, what I need to teach you is how to see other people correctly. That's what this is about. Because as you see other people correctly, you're going to see yourself, and you're going to see your creator. Interesting.
So it's kind of hard for us to own or grasp maybe, but since I have put me out there,
Yep.
I call me them now.
I called me
So
them.
I have to learn about me from them.
That's right. That's exactly right. I've so repressed me. I've thrown me away. I've thrown me away. How do I know? Because every time I'm upset, what's it always about? Am I upset and I go, well, I'm upset because I'm just not loving myself right now? No. We say, I'm upset because you know who did not do what I wanted them to do. Somebody's behavior, somebody's body betrayed my script. That's what I'm always upset about. I'm not upset because, oh, I'm not choosing love today. I'm so upset with myself. It's never what I'm bitching about. That's never what I'm complaining about. I'm always complaining about others. Always somebody else's behavior that their body is doing that isn't acting out the script that I gave to them and what I dreamed my life was meant to be. Right? And so Holy Spirit sets its sights on that. All right. Now, he says, right, so that's the only sane choice you can make in any situation. The only sane choice you can make in any situation. The only sane choice. Only one. Turn to your teacher. Turn to your teacher. That's it. More and more often. That's it. And that's what this whole curriculum is about. How to create a habit in our thinking. A habit, so that turning to our teacher first is a habit. That's what this curriculum is about. And it says that the results of doing that will make our trust in our teacher increase. And that's because no one who has learned from experience that one choice brings peace and joy, while another choice brings chaos and disaster, needs much conditioning. So once you've learned that, hey, when I make this choice to fix and change and judge and condemn other people, it brings pain and disaster and chaos. And when I turn to my teacher first and go, what's your interpretation? It brings joy and peace and abundance. Oh, well now I don't need further convincing. I don't need to learn any further. I get it. One choice brings chaos and disaster, and one joy brings peace and joy. It says once you've seen the difference in the results, you don't need further conditioning. You don't need much. Interesting. In the original edition, it uses the word conditioning. In the edited version, it uses the word learning. And I love that. So you don't need further or much more learning once you've seen what? Once you've learned from experience that one choice brings peace and one choice brings chaos and disaster. Once you get it, you don't need further learning, which means conditioning. Isn't that interesting? Conditioning is learning. I like that. Okay, so then it says, the ego cannot withstand the conditioning process or the learning process. The ego cannot stand the learning process. That's interesting. Ego can't stand learning. What's learning? Learning is this. One choice brings disaster and chaos. One choice brings joy and peace. That is what learning means. That's what conditioning means. And that's all we're learning. That's all we're learning. Because once you learn that, you don't need any more learning. I still need this curriculum, and I still need learning and conditioning, because I haven't exactly got that yet. I still haven't gotten, oh, I get it. When I do anything but turn to my teacher first, I get chaos, disaster, and pain. And then when I ask myself to interpret this based on my past, I get disaster. Did I say that right? That's what we're still learning. That's what all of this learning is for. Because once you learn it, well, you don't need to learn anymore. That's what learning's for. Once you get, if I put my hand on the stove, it hurts, I get burned, you don't need to learn anymore. Right? Once you put your hand on the stove, no one has to tell you again, if you put your hand on the stove, it will hurt, it will burn. I don't have to learn that anymore once I do it, once I learn it. Okay? All right.
Ironically, you're unlearning what your ego's learned by making that decision and realizing that learning was only necessary to get you to the point to unlearning.
That's exactly right. Wow.
So we've all chose correctly a few times, but apparently we haven't learned it well enough to do it every time.
Exactly right.
Is that just our intense desire to be right and, our stubbornness?
It's because our ego cannot withstand the learning process or the conditioning process. Why is it that my ego can't stand learning that? Wow, my ego will learn anything else. Physics, quantum mechanics, how to put together something from IKEA, how to have a better relationship. My ego will go for learning anything, but my ego can't withstand that learning process. Why is that? That's because the process of learning what? One choice brings chaos and disaster, one choice brings peace and joy. Because that learning process itself demonstrates that there is another way. Aha. Why can't my ego withstand learning this? Because the fact that the learning process itself demonstrates there's another way. And that's the one thing the ego cannot withstand. What's the one thing the ego can't stand? Oh, maybe there's another way. Maybe this isn't the only way to look at this. Maybe this isn't the only way it has to be. Maybe it doesn't have to be that all relationships are always hard. Maybe it doesn't have to be that relationships are painful. Maybe it doesn't have to be that I experience pain in my body all the time. Maybe it doesn't have, maybe there's another way of seeing relationships. Maybe there's another way of experiencing the body. Maybe there's another way of being and experiencing my life. The ego cannot withstand that perception, that learning. That's why the Course says the highest the ego can ever go is maybe there's a better way. What can I lose by asking? Maybe the way I'm seeing this is not the only way to see this. The ego cannot withstand that. Once you get to that openness, that learning, then now the gap between you and peace is so small that peace can flow over it and go, yeah, there is a better way, and here it is. I'm glad you asked.
Well, all learning is destructive to the ego. The
All
ego
learning-
is just proving our past,
That's right.
what we think we know.
That's right.
Learning by definition means accepting new information.
Thank you. Learning by definition means accepting new information. So what we're doing with our ego isn't real learning. It's reproducing. It's habit. I'm just doing what I've learned and what I was told. I'm not learning anything new. Learning anything new like, what would a higher loving mind see in this situation? How would a higher and loving mind see me? How would a higher loving mind interpret this particular problem? That's learning. And the ego cannot withstand that. So what that means to me is this problem that you're experiencing, whatever that problem is, it can't withstand learning. So this problem has to be brought for correction. It has to be healed when you start learning, when you bring it to learning, when you go, I wonder what this means to my teacher. All of a sudden the ego cannot defend itself, and it goes away. It goes back to the nothingness from which it came. This problem cannot withstand learning. So if I take this problem that I've got and I start subjecting it to the learning process, what's the learning process? Let me learn about this from my teacher, my higher mind. Then it's as good as done. It's as good as done. It can't withstand it. So that's the best way to solve a problem.
So there's a real warning there. Anytime I look to my past or what I know to try to understand a situation, it's guaranteed I won't learn anything about it.
That's exactly right. What we're doing with our problems is not subjecting it to learning. We're certainly not subjecting it to curiosity. We're not going, gee, this is interesting. I wonder what thoughts in my mind are producing this. And gee, I wonder what my teacher might have to say about this. Right? We don't approach our problems with curiosity and openness of mind and questions. We approach our problems like, who's to blame? Who's to blame for this? Or how can I hide this? Or I think I'm going to just project it and try to get rid of it on somebody else. I'm going to exclude this from myself and see it in somebody else and pretend like it's gone. That's how we approach our problem. That's our problem-solving approach.
So we're still using a wrong thinking to solve the problem.
Exactly.
Our problems are a reflection of our dysfunction.
Exactly. And I love how it's saying that the answer or the antidote to the problem is learning, subjecting it to the learning process that would ensue if we were to bring it to our teacher first, or second, or whenever. But the learning process that occurs when we go, teacher, what does this mean? What is this for? What is this about? Really? How is this, what beliefs is this showing me within my own mind? And how do those beliefs get changed? And teacher, help, can you help me? That is that's a learning process. That's an authentic learning process. And the ego and this problem can't withstand that. So as soon as it's brought to that process, it's as good as gone. Wow, beautiful.
So one of these repeating things that we're convinced we know so well,
Yes,
we need to really understand that I don't know what's going on
that's
here
right.
to get anywhere.
I don't know what this
I need
means.
to forget everything I think
Exactly.
I learned about this because it's all wrong.
That's right. Hey, if I still have this problem, it's proof that I don't know what it means. Because if I knew what the problem was and I knew what it meant, I wouldn't have it. I wouldn't have that problem if I knew what it was.
Do our best to keep ourselves out of it,
That's exactly right.
which takes conscious effort.
That's exactly right. That's our problem-solving approach. How do I keep myself out of this? How do I exclude from myself what I don't like within myself and see it in another and think I've gotten rid of it? Yeah, that'll do it. That's our problem-solving approach. And that's why our problems don't seem to go away. They're cyclical. They're pattern-like. Maybe they go away for a little bit and then they come back again. Our patterns. Because we're not subjecting them to the learning process. We're not making the one and only sane choice you could ever make in a problem and taking it to our teacher first. Turning to our teacher. And I like that. Notice it didn't say ask our teacher. It just said turn to me. I like that. Turn to me. Like, teacher? And that's all it says. It didn't say anything else. Just turn to your teacher. Interesting. Acknowledge that you have a teacher. Acknowledge. Hi, teacher. Oh yeah, rumor has it, I actually have a guide that's available, that's present, that's smarter than me. Imagine that. I have a teacher, I have a guide, it is real, I will turn to it. That's the only sane choice we could ever make in any situation. Every other choice but that is going to lead to disaster and chaos. That's where disaster and chaos comes from. The disaster and chaos you've experienced in that particular situation recently, that's where it came from. You know, it really did seem to our ego like it was them, and they're insane, and they're mean, and they betrayed us, and they're incompetent, and they blah, 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 is the reason there was disaster and chaos, but really is because I didn't turn to my teacher first. Wow. And the more I do it, the more my trust in my teacher will increase. The more I do it, the more I'll go, hey, that worked. Wait a minute, I turned to my teacher on faith, and look what happened. Some peace and joy where there was disaster and chaos. That worked. Okay, well, then it leads to me trying it again sooner next time. And then, hey, that worked again. That worked again. Is that a coincidence? Is that a fluke? Or is there something to that stuff? That if I turn to my teacher first, I'm going to get some peace and joy where there was chaos and disaster. And then you try it the next time even a little sooner. That worked again. I think I'm seeing a pattern here. I think I'm beginning to see that when I do that, I get peace and joy and miracles, and when I don't do that, I get my chaos and disaster. I think I'm starting to learn. I'm starting to learn. And notice that I'm learning through reward instead of pain. Okay? And then it says, conditioning or learning by rewards has always been more effective than learning by pain. That's a new thought. You learn better through reward. You ever heard that? No, not me. I never heard that. You learn better through reward than you do pain. Why is that? That I'm going to remember better when there's a wonderful result than I'm going to remember when there's a painful result. We've always thought that, no, you remember better through pain.
Well, our brain or our brain over our mind shuts down at a certain place, the pain, because it's too painful.
That's right.
It's a reaction to shock.
Yeah, that's right.
And it shuts it down and then compartmentalizes.
That's exactly right. It
so
dissociates.
It creates a trigger for it later on.
Exactly. So it's exactly right. And it says the reason that we learn better through reward, which comes from our teachers, our decision to listen to our teacher, is because pain is an ego illusion, which means pain can never induce more than a temporary effect. Right. pain comes from the ego. Whatever comes from the ego is illusion, which means temporary. So whatever comes from pain, whatever comes from the ego, says pain is an ego illusion and can never induce more than a temporary effect, because pain is of the ego, which is temporary. And also what you were saying, when I experience pain, my first impulse is to forget it, to suppress it, to dissociate it, to project it. How well is that going to produce memory and learning for me? Interesting. So he's saying you don't learn better through hurting yourself and punishing yourself. You learn better through reward. Because reward, he's saying, is a more permanent effect. Because what's the reward? Joy, peace. And what is joy and peace? Eternal. Why? Because it's of God. So it says the rewards of God, however, are immediately recognized as eternal. Interesting. So you learn better through rewards than pain. I love that. So, in other words, each time I turn to my teacher as my response to this problem, I'm going to get rewarded. I'm going to get peace and joy. And I am going to learn from that better. My learning will increase. My learning will speed up. Interesting. So I learn more through joy and peace than I do through pain. Very interesting.
Well, if these are facts, that's a really interesting outlook on life. You know, it's eternal joy interrupted by temporary periods of pain. They're just temporary.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Right, and peace and joy condense time where pain causes it to stand still.
Yes, that's exactly right. And you know, in any given situation, if you want to learn better and make better decisions in any particular chronic problem, if you really want to learn anew and do something different, then stop punishing yourself for doing it. And if you really want to teach somebody else a better way, then stop punishing them and condemning them for doing it. Because learning through pain, which means punishing yourself, I'm a bad person, you're a bad person. I'm going to try to fix you. I'm going to punish you for what you did so I can teach you a better way. Actually, they're not going to learn that. You learn that, you see that very well with children. If you really want to teach children, if you see a child doing something destructive and you want to teach them a better way, it really is true that punishing them and condemning them and judging them doesn't really help them to learn a better way. It doesn't. All it does is teach them to forget who they are. They don't learn better through punishing them and telling them they're wrong and they're bad, right? We see that. We all see that. Not that we're good at not doing it, but we all get that intellectually. Same thing is true about ourselves. If you want to learn a better way so that you can stop doing this destructive habit, whatever that is, you're not going to learn well through punishing yourself, judging yourself, telling yourself that something's wrong with you, condemning yourself, punishing yourself. You're going to learn better through rewarding yourself, loving yourself, asking for help for yourself, turning to something that you have that loves you for yourself. That is the way you will learn a better way.
So this teaching curriculum is for ourselves or others. Never punish for wrongdoing, but always reward for right doing.
Beautiful. With yourself and with others, never punish for mistakes. Don't punish your mistakes. Don't judge or condemn your mistakes. I can't believe I did that again. What is wrong with me? I hate myself. I'm such a blah, 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 blah. And don't do it to another. If you really want a miracle, and you really want something different, learn anew through forgiveness. Learn anew through kindness, compassion, peace, and joy.
When you think about it, there's always a reward for right doing, just
That's right.
there's no guilt
That's
about it, there's no all.
Exactly.
You
And
feel good when you do it.
that's exactly right. And we see that. We've seen that when it comes to the higher models of teaching children, and also the higher models of training animals. That, just like you were saying, ignore the bad behavior, reward the good. That's all you got to do. Because we learn better through reward. Oh, look, when I do this, I get rewarded. Oh, I'm going to do that more. When I do this, nothing. Nothing. They turn away. Oh, okay, I don't want to do that. Right? So, let's let our teacher teach us how to be that way with ourselves. And that's how our teacher is with us. When we make a right choice, get a miracle. When we make a wrong choice, oh, how's that working for you? That's how our teacher teaches us. Right? Our teacher's going to go, how long have you been studying this course? What is wrong with you? If you're not going to learn this course and do it, just do something else. You don't see our teacher teaching us like that. Our teacher teaches through reward, not punishment. Our teacher teaches through this. Do only this and you'll be happy. Do only this and you'll have peace. Our teacher doesn't focus on errors. Our teacher doesn't itemize our errors. Our teacher doesn't analyze what we did wrong. Our teacher just says, oh, well, hey, if you choose peace, if you turn to me, you'll get joy, you'll get a reward. That's all it says. That's real learning. And that's real teaching. Isn't that nice? I love that. That just feels like so sweet. So sweet. I don't have to be bothered anymore that I still have an ego that is still making mistakes. I still have an ego that is still choosing fear over love. I am still choosing attack over forgiveness. Yes, I am. I'm still making mistakes every single day, right? But that's okay. All I need to do right now is choose to turn to my teacher. And guess what happens when I turn to my teacher? All those mistakes I made up to this point today, all the effects of those mistakes get corrected for me. Wow. Now that's what I want to learn how to do. Isn't that beautiful? You don't have to go back in time and fix, repair, analyze, fix, repair. You don't have to. Because if one time you turn to your teacher and go, hey, what's your interpretation? Your teacher, when it reinterprets your mistakes, even if you made 1,000,000 of them by noon, your teacher goes and corrects all the effects of your wrong thinking for you. Now, if that ain't a reward, I don't know what is.
And in general, the world reflects back to us that our mistakes are sins.
That's right.
And that you need to suffer in order to resurrect yourself.
Exactly.
Crucify yourself.
That mistakes are sins, and the only way to atone or learn is through punishment. And this teacher is saying, no, actually the only way to learn is through reward, which is forgiveness, which is learning.
It's like the world says you have to be bad before you can be good.
That's exactly right. The world teaches you have to be bad before you can be good.
But you just can't be good from where you are.
That's exactly right. And this teacher is saying, all you have to do is turn to me, and there will be only reward. There will only be the rewards of God, the rewards of turning to your teacher for its interpretation. It doesn't say, you gotta go fix yourself. You gotta go fix all your problems, and you gotta fix them. And you gotta fix it, fix it, fix it. And then you can come to me. It's saying, don't worry about the mistakes you made. We know you've made mistakes. It is obvious. Your world shows it. Don't worry about that. Just turn to me. Wow, I love that. That's such a relief that I do not have to fix my mistakes. It's okay that I'm still making mistakes. It's okay, I still have an ego. It's all right. What a relief.
This is simple, this is easy.
This is simple.
It's also
It's
the
easy.
hardest thing for us to do.
The ego cannot withstand this answer. The ego cannot withstand it. It just can't stand it. I can't stand the Course in Miracles. That's the way our ego feels about this. I can't stand it. And that's why somehow, for some reason, it seems hard to get to the Course. Whether it's at a class or reading it or remembering what you read. Because the ego knows that the jig is up. If you listen, if you turn to this teacher, it just knows the jig is up. So the ego cannot withstand the Course in Miracles. It just can't.
And that's like what the New Testament says, come as you are, I will make you pass straight.
Yes. Come as you are. In other words, stop trying to fix your problems yourself. And stop trying to fix other people as if they're your problem. You're my problem, and I'm going to fix you. Well, how? Oh, by judging you, telling you what you've done wrong, and telling you what your problem is, and telling you what you should be doing, and telling you how you've hurt me, and telling you what you need to do to fix my problem. That's our approach to problem solving. This approach, turn to me. Wow. This one seems like easy. This one is easy. The other one, hard. Trying to fix other people, trying to analyze other people, trying to get other people to change, trying to punish other people so they get it. Hard, complex, and guess what the result is? Disaster and chaos. Good old disaster and chaos. Yay! My old friends, disaster and chaos. Wow.
Especially after a lot of rewards.
Exactly, especially after I've been getting the rewards of God. So there's the rewards of God, and there is the rewards of the ego, which is disaster and chaos. Those are our two options. All right. So I'll finish this paragraph and then we'll begin to close up. Okay. It says, since this recognition that the rewards of God are eternal and the rewards of the ego are temporary, the pain of the ego is temporary, since this recognition is made by you and not the ego, the recognition itself establishes that you and your ego cannot be identical. What recognition? The recognition. Oh, I am not the ego. That is a revelation. That's a recognizing. So when you go, okay, when I make one choice to turn to Holy Spirit, I get the rewards that are permanent and eternal, and I turn to the ego and I get pain, but that doesn't even last. It's temporary. I must not be an ego. Just the fact that you are looking at your ego and assessing the results of your ego, you can't be an ego. No ego is going to look at itself and assess itself. The ego is not going to do that. So the fact that you're looking at the ego and going, learning, the fact that you're learning about your ego. When I do this, this happens. When I do this, that happens. It says the fact that you do that, what does it say? It establishes the recognition that you and your ego cannot be identical. Now, that recognition is a miracle. Do you see what kind of miracle that would produce? Finally, aha, I'm not the ego. I have an ego, but I'm not the ego. That is freedom from the ego. As long as you don't see yourself as separate from the ego, guess what? The ego's got you wholly and completely at your request. So it's a miracle to go, I am not this ego. I have an ego, and yes, it produces pain, but I'm not that. Wow. Now, it says, you may believe that you've already accepted the difference between you and your ego, but you are by no means convinced as yet that you're not the ego. Well, how do we know that? The very fact that you are preoccupied with the idea of escaping from the ego shows you this. Okay? All right. So, why is that recognition helpful? Why is that recognition a miracle? I am not identical with my ego. I am not my ego.
Well, you couldn't change if that's what you were.
Thank you. I can't learn anew. I can't make a change and choose something else if that's all I am.
Or you couldn't be who you are if you're your ego.
Exactly. Exactly. But so the fact that I'm learning about my ego and I'm assessing its results honestly, and I'm looking at the pattern of it, I'm looking at the habit of it, I'm looking at what happens when I choose or think through my ego, that establishes the fact that, well, you could be an ego because no ego is going to do that. If you're looking at your ego, are you an ego? Are you the ego if you're looking at it and asking questions about it? So the very fact that you're looking at it, looking at your ego, seeing what it says, looking at the pattern of it, means you own that one. And the moment when you get, I am not the ego, there's your freedom. Because why? Because now you know, oh, there's something else there to choose from. Now you're free. Now the prison door is open. Because, yeah, you got it, but that ain't you. That's not all of you.
I think the more we kind of disassociate ourselves with it, the easier it is to escape from it.
That's exactly right. And I'll just read the next sentence since you totally anticipated it. It says, okay, we're talking about the ego, right? And we want to learn how not to be fooled by it, how to not choose through it. And so, because really we want to escape from our ego. How do you do it? Well, you cannot escape from the ego by humbling it, or controlling it, or punishing it. Interesting, okay? So, you don't want to be harassed and limited by your ego, the ego, anymore. You don't want to be harassed by this problem, this conflict anymore. Well, the way you escape it first is to stop trying to humble it, control it, or punish it. Wow. That is the beginning of the end of this problem, or the ego. Don't try to punish it, humble it, or control it.
How about laugh at it?
Yeah.
Yes, laugh at it would work.
Recognize it.
Exactly.
I see it as all the bad ideas and false information that I accepted as true. And I keep turning to that little pool for advice
Yeah,
and then following it.
that's right, exactly.
It gets to be just a collection of the wrong things to have believed.
That's right. That's exactly right. Exactly right. And, you know, the only reasons that some of these persistent problems are still persistent, meaning chronic, meaning our patterns, the only reason they haven't gone is because our problem-solving approach with it was to try to humble it, punish for it, and to control it. You know, exactly what we do with each other when each other isn't acting right. How is it when somebody is behaving in a way that displeases us, what do? We try to humble them, control them, or punish them for that behavior, thinking if they are just feeling enough pain, then they won't do it anymore. Now, does that work? So you're saying, you know, that's the old way of problem solving. It doesn't produce real learning. You know, when you humble or control or punish somebody, do they go, thank you, I have seen the light. Thank you so much. I see that was totally my ego, and I have seen the light. Now I'm going to do as you said. It doesn't produce learning. When you punish yourself or try to control habits, or when you try to control impulses or problems that you have, it doesn't produce real learning. It doesn't produce real change. And when you do that to other people, it doesn't produce real change. What's the only thing that produces real change?
Love.
Turning to your teacher. And rewards. Turning to your teacher who does what? Who teaches through reward. Your teacher goes, oh, I'm so glad you turned to me. Let me give you some peace. Let me give you some correct perception and the peace and joy that comes from that. Our teacher teaches through reward. Our ego teaches through punishment, controlling, and humbling. Who do you think you are? Wow.
Yeah, I had a situation last week. I was like trying to buy a direct-to-garment printer, and they're like, I was pricing, they're like $15,000 to $25,000, and I'm like, well, I can take out a loan to do this, or you know what, and I'm like, no, I'm just going to give it to the higher mind.
Nice.
So I went to see my accountant last week, and we got to talking, and I told him what I wanted to do. He goes, you know, I know a lady who used to print those, and I think she has one of those printers in her garage. So now I'm going to get the printer for little or nothing.
Wow.
What would the odds be of my accountant knowing somebody?
That's
Yeah.
right. It's a beautiful demonstration of, now you learned, and you learned through reward. Learned what? The rewards and the benefit of turning first to your teacher and saying, I need a printer.
Yeah.
Spirit teacher, I need a printer. And then, you know, and then
I just was blown away.
that's right. Beautiful demonstration of that. So beautiful. So the take-home message here is the thing that we're learning here, the goal of our learning is to turn to your teacher more and more often first, so that you can learn through rewards, so that you can learn better. All right.
I try to recognize and remember, I wouldn't have this problem or grievance if I had learned enough so far
That's
to be able to deal with it.
That's right.
But here it is again, so obviously I didn't. I need new information.
That's right. I need a higher perspective. And that's the only sane choice you can make in any situation, in any conflict. All right. So let's stop here for this evening. Let's do our financial expression of appreciation. Thank you guys so much for your expressions of appreciation financially. I appreciate that. And thank you guys watching on the internet. Thank you for your expressions, your financial expression of appreciation. I appreciate them very much. And if you'd like to make a financial expression of appreciation, you can go to my website, Kujawa.com, and do that. Also, I'm passing around a notebook, and what I'm looking for is if you would like, I'm going to be doing webinars, I'm going to be doing a blog, I'm going to be doing a Course in Miracles advice column and a blog, and I'm going to be doing webinars. And if you would like to be informed about those when they're happening, give me your name, your email, and your phone number, And also, if you can also go to, you can go to Miracles Forever Now and opt in. So you can either do that, or you can give me your name and email, and then I'll send you an option to opt in to that. So that is going around. Feel free to put your name.
Text.
What'd you say?
Do that through text.
Yeah, I think it's an email address, and then you click the opt-in button.
Excellent. Address again.
It's called Miracles Forever Now. Miracles Forever Now.
That's a website?
Yes, it is.
So Miracles
MiraclesforEverNow.com. Let me see, I'm just gonna confirm that. MiraclesforEverNow.com. Okay. All right, yeah, and I'm gonna be doing, I think my first webinar I'm gonna do is understanding the spiritual path of A Course in Miracles. Like, as a spiritual path, what is A Course in Miracles? And really understanding it as a spiritual path. What is the spiritual path of A Course in Miracles? And also, what is the educational program and curriculum of A Course in Miracles? How is it laid out? If A Course in Miracles is a spiritual path, like other spiritual paths, how do you walk it? What is the dimensions and the characteristics of this particular spiritual path? How do you walk it? How do you commit to it? How do you utilize it? What does it mean to use A Course in Miracles as your spiritual path? What is that? How do you use it like that? I think that's going to be one of my first webinars. And also, if you'd like to learn more about my holistic counseling practice, you can go to Kujawa.com and schedule a Miracle Psychotherapeutic Session. All right, any questions or comments before we close up and do our integration meditation? What's something that you guys heard tonight that you really want to remember and use?
Only gratitude is the appropriate response to your brother.
Amen. Only gratitude is an appropriate response to your brother, and it produces holy perception, which means ecstatic, healing perception. What's something else you want to remember so that you can use?
About habits.
Yes.
Change means breaking these habits, but
Yes.
it's not habits of behaviors, habits of the way I see things.
Beautiful. Breaking a habit really means change. Change means learning. This habit has continued because I'm not learning anything new about it. I'm just repeating what I believed. Beautiful. Change means learning. And the only learning that we want now is the reward, the learning that comes through rewards. All right, what else? What's something else you want to remember so you can use it?
Being mindful of the two worlds that I exist in.
Yes. Being mindful of your other life, and then how...
Being mindful of the two lives.
Yes, and the remembrance that your indebtedness to your brothers and sisters is the bridge, is the door to your other life. Your other life that isn't dominated by your ego, where you've accepted, I'm not an ego. I'm not the ego. Wow. Beautiful. All right.
Every time I ask my past what to do with this, I'm going to get the same result as before. It's just
Yes.
more pain and chaos.
Chaos and disaster. Beautiful. Anything else?
Well, you remember which teacher's going to give you joy and peace.
That's right. Yep. Yes. It's easy to remember it when the contrast is so clear. All right. All right, so let's do our integration meditation. Turn this back on. Okay. All right, so why don't you go ahead and close your eyes. And just take a breath and just focus, tune into how you feel right now. How do you feel having heard these ideas? Beautiful. All right. So, first thing I want you to do is I want you to bring to your awareness a situation, a conflict, a problem that has been persistent or chronic. You've tried this and you've tried that and you've tried this and you've tried that, and you still have this persistent pattern. And I want you to take note of it. How does it look? How does it feel? Who seems to be the players involved? And just take a momentary, a brief inventory of the ways that you have tried to humble, control, or punish this problem, this persistent problem. In what ways have you tried to control it in yourself and control it in others? In what ways have you projected it onto others? In what ways have you tried to hide it? In what ways have you tried to punish yourself or another in response to this problem? And then, what was the result? And now, let's acknowledge that all the punishment and the control that we have used on this problem has failed to produce real learning. It has failed to produce real change in this problem. Let's just acknowledge the obvious. That didn't work. It didn't produce real change, lasting change. It certainly didn't produce peace and joy. And so then let us remember that our teacher today told us that the only sane answer, the only sane choice, the only choice that would work in this situation to bring about real change, the only sane choice that we could make in this situation is to turn to our teacher more and more frequently. So let's go ahead and do something different relative to this, in response to this problem. And so, keeping the problem in our line of sight, we then turn to our teacher. Imagine yourself turning your face to your teacher, your loving right mind, the higher mind. And then ask your teacher what it means. Ask your teacher how your teacher sees it. How do you see it? What does this mean? What do you see? What is your interpretation, teacher? What's your answer, teacher? And then practice listening. don't hear or see anything, just continue to affirm to your teacher, "Teacher, I want your answer. I want only your answer. I'm asking for only your answer, and I will not decide anything about this problem until I have heard your answer. I will not do anything until I have heard your answer." And just breathe in the openness. Breathe in the joy of even just the possibility of learning something new and different about this situation, so that maybe a real change could occur finally, at long last. See if you can feel the hopefulness again, that maybe there is a better way. Maybe there is something that you could learn that would produce real change in this chronic problem. Tune into the hopefulness that maybe there is a way. Maybe there is a real answer. Breathe in the lightness. Breathe in the lightness and the rewards of this approach, of this problem-solving approach. Tune into the lightness and the ease and the grace and the joy and the rewards of this approach. And feel love. Feel the love behind this answer. Feel a love for you behind this answer. And just breathe and feel. Feel the presence of your teacher. Feel the love of your teacher. Feel the realness of the presence of your teacher. Your teacher is not a figment of your imagination. You are in a very real and very powerful, holy relationship with this teacher. And our trust in this teacher will increase as we are willing to turn to this teacher more and more frequently when we are upset. Thank you, teacher. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. And to that we say amen. So when you're ready, just bring your awareness back to the room, back to your body. Yay!
Thank you.
Give yourself a hand for hearing this. Yay! Yay! For whatever brought us here. I mean, if you're here, guess what? You are not an ego. You are not your ego if you're here. Because no ego would bring you here. So I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you so much. I'm deeply indebted to you guys. Thank you.